Jack Miller sat alone in the back of the classroom. He was the only human at the Galactic Academy of Sciences. The walls were made of a strange metal that changed colors with the temperature. The ceiling was high and curved like the inside of an egg. Jack felt small here, even though he was taller than many of the alien students. Jack did not want to be at this school. He was the first human ever accepted. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Confederation after humans built ships that could travel faster than light. Many aliens still thought humans were dangerous and primitive. They called Earth a death world because it had strong gravity, harmful radiation, extreme weather, and many dangerous animals. Mr. Miller, perhaps you can tell the class why human lungs are so inefficient. Professor Zorix asked with a smirk. The tall, thin alien had skin so cleared you could see his organs moving inside. His 6 fingers tapped impatiently on the desk. The professor had been picking on Jack since the first day of class. Our lungs work well for Earth's atmosphere, Professor, Jack said calmly. They helped us survive ice ages and forest fires. Barely adequate for a primitive world, Professor Zorix said. The other students laughed. On more advanced planets, such basic organs would never evolve. Jack kept his face blank. He had been trained to hide his feelings. Before coming to the academy, he had been a special forces soldier. He had fought in the worst places on Earth and survived. The Academy Selection Committee chose him because he was good at staying calm and talking to people from different cultures. They thought he would help humans join the galactic community. But it was getting harder every day to keep his cool. After class, a purple-skinned alien girl with glowing spots on her face walked beside him. Her name was Neela. She was the only student who was nice to him. Don't let Zorix bother you, she said. He treats all new species this way. Does he also schedule their classes in high-gravity rooms so they arrive tired and out of breath? Jack asked. Neela looked shocked. He's been changing the room settings for you. That's against school rules. Jack shrugged. I can handle it. Earth's gravity is stronger than most planets. That's part of why they call us Deathworlders. Most students here come from garden worlds, Neela explained. Places with perfect weather, few dangerous animals, and not many natural disasters. They've never had to adapt to hard conditions like humans have. They walked into Professor Lyra's classroom. The old Arcturian teacher had blue feathers instead of hair and 4 arms. Unlike the other teachers, she was kind to Jack. Today we will learn about surviving in hostile environments, she announced. Each team will design a shelter for a high-radiation planet. The students formed groups quickly. No one asked Jack to join them. I'll work with you, Neela whispered. As they worked, Professor Zorix entered the room and walked over to Professor Lyra. They spoke quietly, but Jack could hear them with his better-than-average human hearing. You're too soft on the Deathworlder, Zorix said. These creatures fought brutal wars on their own planet for thousands of years. They can't be trusted. Jack has shown nothing but patience and respect, Lyra argued. Perhaps you should do the same. The Council made a mistake allowing Earth to join the Confederation, Zorix hissed. I will prove humans don't belong here. As they argued, Jack continued working on the shelter design. He knew how to build structures that could withstand radiation, extreme heat, and violent storms. He had done it many times in real life. That night in his room, Jack sent a message to Earth Command. Situation difficult, but manageable. Continuing mission. He didn't mention the bullying or the discrimination. He had a job to do. Show the galaxy that humans could be valuable allies, not just dangerous Deathworlders. Jack looked at the stars through his window. Some of those points of light were home to races that feared humans. He would show them they were wrong, no matter how long it took. 2 months passed, and life at the academy got worse for Jack. Professor Zorix seemed to make it his life's mission to prove humans did not belong there. Today we will read ancient Viridian medical texts, Zorix announced to the class. He looked directly at Jack. Everyone must translate 10 pages by tomorrow. Jack knew this was aimed at him. The Academy had not added human languages to the translation system yet, so Jack had to do all translations by hand. Ancient Viridian was one of the hardest languages in the galaxy, with symbols that changed meaning based on the time of day they were read. After class, Neela found Jack in the library. His eyes were tired from staring at the strange symbols. "He's not being fair," she said. "No one can learn Ancient Viridian in one night." "I don't need to learn it," Jack said. He showed her a small device in his hand. "Earth Command gave me this translator. It's not perfect, but it will help." "That's cheating," Neela said, looking worried. "No, it's adapting," Jack corrected her. "Humans are good at finding tools to solve problems." The next day, Jack handed in his translation. Zorix's clear skin turned dark with anger. "This is impossible," he said. "You must have cheated." "I used a translator device," Jack said calmly. "The assignment was to translate the text, not to learn the language." "Typical Deathworlder thinking," Zorix said. "Always looking for shortcuts instead of doing honest work." Later that week, Professor Krell made things even harder in physical training. He set the room's gravity too low for Jack. While the other students floated gracefully through obstacle courses, Jack bounced awkwardly, hitting walls and ceiling. "Control yourself, Deathworlder," Krell shouted when Jack crashed into a light fixture. "This is why humans aren't ready for space travel." Jack said nothing, but Neela saw something change in his eyes. They became sharper, more focused. His movements, despite the low gravity, became more precise. In Professor Tarn's engineering class, the teacher assigned group projects, but told students not to include Jack. For safety reasons, Tarn explained. Human hands are too strong and might break delicate components. Jack had to work alone on a project meant for 5 students. He stayed in the lab all night for a week, building his assigned star drive model. When presentation day came, his model was the only one that actually worked. "Beginner's luck," Professor Tarn said dismissively. One day, the Academy held a survival test. Students had to spend 1 hour in a room filled with mild toxic gas while wearing protective suits. Most students lasted only 15 minutes before the discomfort made them leave. Jack stayed the full hour. He didn't even seem uncomfortable. "He must have cheated," Zorix told the other teachers. "I demand he retake the test under my supervision." Jack agreed to retake the test. This time, Zorix made the gas stronger and damaged Jack's protective suit when he wasn't looking. Jack noticed the leak right away but said nothing. He still completed the full hour, though his skin turned slightly red from the gas. "I've been patient," Jack told Neela that night as she helped him treat the chemical burns on his arms. "But there's a limit to how much I can take." Neela noticed Jack was changing. He used to slouch to seem smaller and less threatening. Now he stood straight, making him taller than most students. His movements became smoother, more efficient. When someone dropped something loud, Jack would spin toward the sound instantly, his hands ready. "You're different lately," she said. "I'm tired of hiding what I am," Jack replied. "And what are you?" Neela asked. Jack didn't answer, but his silence made Neela nervous. The Academy record said he was just a student from Earth, but she was starting to suspect there was much more to Jack Miller than anyone knew. That night, Professor Lyra sent Jack a private message. "Be careful. Zorix is planning something bigger. Remember why you're here." Jack read the message twice, then deleted it. "I remember," he whispered to himself. But do they? The Academy announced a field trip to the jungle moon Thelos IV. All students would collect plant samples for Professor Zorix's biology class. Jack was excited to finally leave the school and see a new world. When the students arrived on the moon, Jack felt at home right away. Thelos IV had thick air, tall trees, and many insects. It reminded him of the rainforests on Earth where he had trained. The other students complained about the heat and bugs, but Jack found it comfortable. "Stay with your groups at all times," Professor Zorix warned everyone. "Thelos IV has dangerous animals." Jack was put in a group with Neela, and 2 nervous Pleiadians with blue skin and 4 eyes. As they started their hike, Professor Zorix approached Jack. "Miller, I need you to collect samples from the eastern sector," he said, pointing to a distant area of jungle. "That's far from the main group," Jack said, looking at his map. "The safety rules say we should stay together." "Are you afraid, Deathworlder?" Zorix asked with a smile. "I thought humans were supposed to be brave." Jack knew it was a trap, but he also knew he could handle himself better than most Academy students in a wild environment. "Fine, I'll be back in 3 hours," he said. As Jack walked away, he heard Zorix whisper to Professor Krell, "Let's see how the Deathworlder handles real wilderness." The eastern sector was thicker and darker than where the other students were collecting samples. Jack moved quietly through the trees, listening to every sound. He used his knife to cut samples from strange plants with purple leaves and glowing fruits. He collected twice as many as he needed. Jack was so focused on his work that he almost missed the warning signs. Sudden silence, a change in the air, the feeling of being watched. His military training kicked in. Something was stalking him. He climbed a tree and waited. Below, a 6-legged cat creature with poison claws walked silently through the undergrowth. It was following his scent trail. Jack stayed perfectly still until the creature moved on. Instead of returning on the same path, Jack took a longer route back. He reached a clearing where he could see the main student camp in the distance. Then he heard screams. The cat creature had found the main group. The students were running in panic. The professors stood frozen, not knowing what to do. The animal was closing in on a small Pleiadian student who had tripped and fallen. Jack dropped his sample bag and ran. He covered the distance faster than anyone thought possible. Just as the creature jumped toward the fallen student, Jack put himself between them. He faced the animal directly, making eye contact. The cat creature hissed, showing sharp teeth. Jack didn't move. He remembered his training with Earth's wildlife experts. Show no fear, make yourself look bigger, don't run. Back away slowly, he told the students behind him, never taking his eyes off the creature. No sudden movements. The cat creature swiped at Jack with its poison claws. Jack dodged with surprising speed. He picked up a long stick and held it like a spear. "I don't want to hurt you," he said to the animal, though he knew it couldn't understand. "This is your home, not mine." For 5 tense minutes, Jack kept the creature's attention while the students and professors moved to safety. Finally, the animal lost interest and disappeared back into the jungle. When Jack rejoined the group, he expected thanks. Instead, Professor Zorix was angry. "You endangered everyone," Zorix said, his clear skin flushed dark with emotion. "That beast was tracking you. Your predator scent attracted it." "That's not true," Neela defended Jack. "The creature came from the west. Jack was in the east." Silence. Zorix snapped. "We're returning to the academy immediately." That night, Professor Lyra knocked on Jack's door. Her face looked worried. "I've accessed your full records," she said quietly. "I know what you did before the academy. Your military service. Your special training." Jack's body tensed. "How did you find that?" "Those files are classified. I have friends in Earth Command," Lyra explained. "Jack, I'm concerned. If Zorix and the others push you too far." "I'm fine," Jack said, but his voice had an edge to it that made Lyra step back. After she left, Neela sent Jack a message. "I saw how you handled that animal. No ordinary student could do that." "Who are you really, Jack Miller?" Jack didn't answer. He looked at the knife he kept hidden under his mattress, a reminder of his past life. He had promised Earth Command he would control himself, that he would show the galaxy humans could be peaceful. But his patience was running out. The Academy announced its yearly intellectual combat tournament. This was not a physical fight, but a contest where teams solved hard problems under pressure. The winning team would get money for research and special privileges. Professor Zorix called Jack to his office. His clear skin rippled with barely hidden anger. "Miller, you will be captain of the xenobiology team," he said. Jack was surprised. "Why me? You've made it clear you don't think I belong here." "The headmaster insists we include you," Zorix said. "But don't worry. I selected your teammates carefully." Jack soon learned what Zorix meant. His team included Glix, a slug-like alien who fell asleep randomly; Pora, a nervous plant being who wilted under pressure; and Zav, a floating gas creature who could barely use the computer systems. "They're setting you up to fail," Mila told Jack when she saw his team. "These are the weakest students." Jack looked at his unusual team. On Earth, he had led soldiers through impossible missions. He had turned scared recruits into effective fighters. This was just another challenge. "We'll be ready," he said. For the next 2 weeks, Jack trained his team like a military unit. He learned each member's strengths and weaknesses. Glix couldn't stay awake long, but had perfect memory. Pora was nervous, but amazing at pattern recognition. Zav couldn't type, but could process information faster than anyone. Jack created a system where each team member did what they were best at. They practiced every day, solving harder and harder problems. The tournament began with 16 teams. To everyone's surprise, Jack's team won their first match easily, then their second. By the time they reached the semifinals, people were talking. "How is the Deathworlder's team winning?" Students whispered in the hallways. Professor Zorix was furious. His favorite team was led by Vex, a talented Proximan student with mild telepathic abilities. Vex had won the tournament twice before. The final match put Jack's team against Vex's team. The problem was to identify a mystery disease and create a treatment plan in 30 minutes. Both teams worked frantically. Halfway through, Jack noticed something strange. Every time his team figured something out, Vex's team suddenly had the same idea. Jack remembered that Proximans could read minds if they concentrated hard enough. "They're cheating," Jack whispered to his team. "Vex is reading our thoughts." Human minds were naturally harder to read than most species, which was why Vex was mainly targeting Jack's teammates. Jack quickly changed their strategy. He had each team member write their ideas down instead of saying them aloud and thinking about them. Vex's team fell behind and lost the final match. Jack's unusual team had won the tournament. "Impossible," Zorix shouted. "There must have been cheating." Jack stood tall. "Yes, there was cheating. Vex was using telepathy to steal our answers. I have proof." Jack showed recordings from the competition room. The cameras clearly showed Vex staring intensely at Jack's teammates, his eyes glowing slightly, a sign of active telepathy. "This is typical Deathworlder paranoia," Zorix dismissed. The recordings proved nothing. Jack filed a formal complaint with Headmaster Orion, an ancient Soluvian with gray skin and wise eyes. After reviewing brain activity recordings from the competition, Orion made his decision. "Vex's team is disqualified for telepathic interference," Orion announced the next day. "Jack Miller's team wins the tournament." The academy buzzed with the news. Some students were angry, others impressed. Jack's teammates were thrilled. It was the first time any of them had won anything. That evening, Professor Zorix found Jack alone in the xenobiology lab. Zorix's skin was dark with rage. "You've made a mockery of me," he said, backing Jack against a wall of dangerous chemicals. "First the field trip, now this tournament. You think you're so clever." "The better team won," Jack said calmly. "That's all." "Perhaps humans aren't evolved enough to understand respect," Zorix hissed. "You should know your place, Deathworlder." Something changed in Jack's eyes. A coldness appeared that should have warned Zorix to back away. Instead, the professor stepped closer and shoved Jack hard against the shelves. Glass containers crashed to the floor. Colorful liquids mixed and began to smoke. Warning alarms started to blare. Zorix's eyes widened as he realized what he had done. The chemicals were highly dangerous when mixed. "What have you done?" he gasped, backing away as the smoke thickened. "You did this," Jack said, his voice suddenly different, harder, more commanding. But now we both have to deal with it. The laboratory doors automatically lock shut, trapping them both inside with the spreading chemicals. Toxic smoke filled the laboratory. Red alarm lights flashed as the chemicals mixed on the floor. The room's computer spoke in a calm voice. Danger. Hazardous chemical reaction detected. Laboratory sealed. Decontamination starting. Jack looked at the spreading chemicals. His military training kicked in. He quickly assessed the situation. The main door was locked, the ventilation system had shut down, and the chemicals would create deadly gas within minutes. Professor Zorix started to panic. "We're going to die," he gasped, his clear skin turning pale. "The gas will kill us before the emergency team can override the locks." Jack didn't waste time arguing. He ripped a piece of cloth from his shirt and soaked it in water from the sink. "Put this over your mouth and nose," he ordered, handing the wet cloth to Zorix. "It will filter some of the gas." "Why are you helping me?" Zorix asked, coughing. "I've been terrible to you." "I don't have to like you to save you," Jack said simply. The fumes grew thicker. Jack knew most aliens couldn't survive this kind of poison for long. Viridians like Zorix were especially sensitive to toxins, but humans from Earth had evolved breathing systems that could filter many poisons. Jack's Special Forces training had made his lungs even stronger. Outside the lab, students and teachers gathered as the alarm sounded throughout the academy. Emergency systems sprayed firefighting foam, but it mixed with the chemicals and made things worse. "Jack and Professor Zorix are still in there," Neela shouted, pushing through the crowd. Inside, Zorix was getting weaker. He slid down the wall to the floor, struggling to breathe even with the wet cloth. "I hate you," he wheezed, "but I don't want to die." "That makes two of us," Jack replied. He looked around the lab, his mind working fast. The emergency exit was on the far side of the room, but too much toxic gas filled the space between. The ceiling panels might provide access to the ventilation system, but they were too high to reach easily. Jack remembered his combat engineering training. He grabbed a long metal tube and some tape from a drawer. He connected the tube to a small air vent near the floor, sealing it with tape. Then he took a breathing mask from the emergency kit on the wall. The mask wasn't made for human faces, but Jack made it fit Zorix. "This will give you clean air from outside the lab," Jack explained, connecting the tube to the mask. "It's not much, but it might keep you alive until help comes." Zorix's eyes widened. "What about you?" "I'll manage," Jack said. His eyes were red from the fumes, but he was still standing while Zorix could barely stay conscious. Jack went to work on their escape. He pushed a heavy table under the ceiling panels and climbed up. The toxic gas was worse near the ceiling. Jack held his breath as he punched through a panel and pulled himself up into the narrow space above. "What are you doing?" Zorix called weakly. "Finding us a way out," Jack replied, his voice muffled. In the ceiling crawl space, Jack could see the lab's ventilation ducts. He followed them until he found a junction that led toward the exit. Jack kicked out another ceiling panel and dropped down near the emergency door. The chemical smoke was thick here, burning his skin and lungs. Jack's vision blurred, but he forced himself to focus. The emergency door had a manual override, but it needed a security code. Jack's fingers flew over the keypad, trying different academy codes he had memorized. Finally, one worked. The door hissed, breaking the seal. Fresh air rushed in, swirling with the toxic smoke. Jack staggered back to where Zorix lay barely conscious. He lifted the professor onto his shoulders, ignoring the burning pain as chemicals dripped onto his back and arms. "Hold on," Jack grunted, carrying Zorix toward the exit. The path to the door was like walking through fire. The mixed chemicals created acid that ate through their clothes and burned their skin. Jack used his body to shield Zorix from the worst of it. When they finally stumbled through the emergency exit, medical robots rushed to take Zorix. The professor was immediately placed in a clear medical pod filled with healing gel. Jack refused to get into a pod. He stood straight despite chemical burns across his back and arms. His skin was red and blistered, his lungs damaged from the toxic gas. But still he remained standing. Students stared in shock as scanners showed the poison levels in Jack's blood. The amount would have killed any other species instantly. How is he still alive? Someone whispered. Professor Lyra stepped forward. Because he's not just a Deathworlder, she announced. He's an Earth Special Forces operative, trained to survive conditions that would kill most beings. The students and teachers fell silent, looking at Jack with new eyes. Jack spent 3 days in the medical center. The doctors were amazed at how quickly his body healed from the chemical burns. They had never seen anything like it before. Your cells regenerate twice as fast as other species, the head doctor told him. Is this normal for humans? No, Jack admitted. I had special medical treatments during my military service. They changed my body to heal faster. News about Jack spread quickly through the academy. Students who once avoided him now wanted to talk to him. They asked questions about Earth, humans, and his military past. While Jack recovered, the academy's leaders began an investigation. They checked all records about what had happened to Jack since he arrived. They found messages between Professor Zorix and other teachers planning ways to make Jack fail his classes. Headmaster Orion called an emergency meeting of the Academy Council. This behavior goes against everything we stand for, he said. We cannot allow prejudice to poison our school. The council voted to unseal Jack's complete records. What they found shocked everyone. Captain Jack Miller, Earth Special Forces, Hostile Environment Specialist, winner of 6 medals for saving both humans and aliens from the most dangerous places in space. Before coming to the Academy, he had volunteered for a special program to help humans join the galactic community peacefully. The Academy sent a message to Earth Command asking why they had sent a military officer instead of a regular student. The answer came the next day in the form of a hologram message from Admiral Kate Ross. Her image appeared in the council chamber. We sent exactly who you asked for, she said. The Galactic Confederation wanted a human who could handle the difficulties of your academy while showing our commitment to peace. Despite all the challenges and unfair treatment, Jack showed amazing restraint. Professor Zorix, now recovered from the chemical accident, faced the Academy Council. His clear skin flushed with shame. You deliberately put a student in danger because of your prejudice against his species, Headmaster Orion said. This violates our most important rules. I didn't understand, Zorix said quietly. I truly believe humans were dangerous predators who couldn't be trusted. And now? Orion asked. Zorix looked at Jack. He could have left me to die in that laboratory. Most predator species would have saved themselves first. But he risked his life to save mine. I was wrong about humans. At least about this one. The council decided that Zorix would lose his senior teaching position. He would still teach basic classes but under supervision. All teachers would now take a course on species awareness and anti-discrimination. After the hearing, Jack received a private message from Earth Command. Auction to return home is available. Mission considered complete. Jack thought about it. Going home would be easier. But he knew his presence at the Academy was important for human-alien relations. He wrote back, request to complete full academic year, situation improving. That evening, Neela found Jack sitting alone in the Academy garden. Why didn't you tell me you were a Special Forces soldier? She asked. Would you have been my friend if you knew? Jack asked. Neela thought for a moment. Probably not at first. We're taught that predator species like humans are unpredictable and violent. And now I know better, she said. You're the least violent person I know, considering what you've been through. News of the laboratory incident and Jack's true identity spread beyond the Academy. Stories appeared on the Galactic Information Network. Many species who had feared humans began to reconsider their views. If humans could show such restraint despite provocation, perhaps they weren't the uncontrollable predators many believed them to be. Perhaps Earth deserved its place in the Galactic Confederation after all. More human students would be coming to the Academy the following year. Jack knew they would face challenges, but the path would be easier because of what had happened. His mission wasn't just to survive at the Academy. It was to change how the galaxy saw humans. As he walked back to his room that night, students and teachers who had once avoided him now nodded with respect. Jack nodded back. It was a small step, but an important one. 6 months passed, and the Academy changed in many ways. New rules protected students from discrimination. Teachers learned about different species and their unique strengths. Jack, now fully recovered, found himself respected and even popular. Students from all species wanted to learn from him. They asked about Earth, human culture, and survival techniques. Jack started an unofficial club where he taught basic self-defense and emergency response. Even some teachers joined. Professor Lyra asked Jack to help with her classes. Students should learn that different evolutionary paths create different but equal strengths, she said. Your perspective is valuable. One day, Professor Zorix requested a meeting with Jack. They met in the same laboratory where the accident had happened. It was fully repaired now with new safety systems. I want to apologize properly, Zorix said. His clear skin showed his nervousness. I was wrong about you and about humans. What changed your mind? Jack asked. When you carried me out of this room, Zorix said, you used your body to shield me from the chemicals. I saw the burns on your back. No one does that for someone they hate. I didn't hate you, Jack said. I just wanted to be treated fairly. I understand that now, Zorix said. I saw only what I expected to see, a dangerous predator. I failed to recognize the discipline and control that makes your species remarkable. Jack accepted the apology. He knew it was important for moving forward. The Academy created a new course called Adaptation and Survival, taught by Jack and Professor Lyra together. Students learned how different planets produce different biological adaptations. Those from safe garden worlds learned techniques from hard-world species, while predator-evolved beings gained appreciation for the qualities of prey-evolved cultures. The Confederation needs all types, Jack explained in the first class. Garden worlders bring creativity born from security. Deathworlders contribute vigilance and adaptability from constant challenges. Neither is superior, just different tools in the galactic toolkit. Jack received a message that 10 new human students would arrive next term. He worked with Academy staff to prepare for them, making sure the dormitories had proper gravity settings and the cafeteria offered Earth-compatible food. Neela helped Jack create an orientation guide for the new humans. What advice will you give them? She asked. Be patient, Jack said. Show restraint when tested. Remember you represent all of humanity. Is that how you survived here? Neela asked. Jack smiled. That and good military training. Headmaster Orion called Jack to his office. The ancient Soluvian looked pleased. Your presence has changed the Academy for the better, Orion said. We've been too comfortable in our similarities. Diversity makes us stronger. I'm just one example of humanity, Jack said. Others might be very different. That's true of all species, Orion replied. But you've shown us that differences can be strengths. On the last day of the term, Earth Command sent Jack a new message. Mission extended. You will supervise integration of new human students. Promotion to Major approved. Jack felt proud of what he had accomplished. He had come to the Academy expecting to endure discrimination quietly. Instead, he had helped change the entire system. When the new human students arrived, they found a different academy than Jack had experienced. Teachers welcomed them. Alien students were curious rather than afraid. The path would still have challenges, but it would be easier because of Jack's experience. They'll still underestimate you sometimes, Jack told the nervous new humans during orientation. Use that, not as warriors, but as ambassadors who can surprise them with capability and compassion. That's how Earth earns its place among the stars. Neela stood beside Jack as he addressed the new arrivals. She had learned that humans weren't defined by their capacity for violence, but by their choice to use strength to protect rather than harm. "Ready for another year?" she asked Jack when the orientation ended. "Absolutely," he replied. "The hard part is over. Now we build something new." As they walked across the academy grounds, Jack looked up at the stars visible through the clear dome ceiling. Some of those distant points of light were home to beings who once feared humans. Now, because of his actions, they were beginning to see humans as valuable allies. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a good start. Jack Miller, once bullied for being a Deathworlder, had become a bridge between worlds.